Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. I'm Ruth Shelley, President of the Rotary Club of Portland. Welcome to our live weekly membership meeting. This year's theme for Rotary International is Rotary Opens Opportunities. And indeed, Rotary does open opportunities. And this is the last month we'll be talking about the 3 doors of opportunity: healing, recovery, and peace building. As we gather after Memorial Day, our speaker, Tim Morgan from AAA Oregon, Idaho, will be talking about how healing from the pandemic in the form of vaccines has advanced recovery of personal travel. But I also want us to keep peace building in mind, as the many Memorial Day tributes of the past weekend remind us of those who gave their lives in the pursuit of world peace. Let us remember and honor them. But first, let's welcome Rotarian Carol Salter for our reflection. Carol?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, I guess it is. In keeping with Tim being our honored guest today, I decided to do a AAA reflection here today. So I have 3 quotes. One is under the topic of accept. To make a difference, understand differences. And that's by Syed Shahrukh. Aspire. So many of our dreams at first seem impossible, then they seem improbable. And then when we summon the will, they soon become inevitable. And that's from Christopher Reeves. And my 3rd A is accountability. Opinion is really the lowest form of human knowledge. It requires no accountability, no understanding. The highest form of knowledge is empathy, for it requires us to suspend our egos and live in another's world. It requires profound purpose, larger than the self kind of understanding. That's by Bill Bullard. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Accept, aspire, and remembering accountability. A good reminder for all of us. And if you'd like to volunteer to give the reflection, Siobhan has put the link in the chat, or you can email her directly. Now I'd ask that Rotarians who have invited a guest to raise their real or virtual hand, and Carol will call on you to unmute and introduce them. Or if you're a visiting Rotarian who came on your own, please raise your hand and introduce yourself or let us know of your presence via the chat box. Carol, do you see any hands waving for guests or?
I do not.
Visiting Rotarians? We may have some joining us during the course of the meeting, but of course we welcome all of you veterans who are here. And now it's June, it's a new month. I'd like to extend a happy birthday to everyone with birthdays this month. We alternate each week honoring birthdays and anniversaries. Take a look at the June birthdays here, and if you know someone on this list, please reach out. Fortunately, celebrations are coming back in favor, but everyone appreciates hearing a word of greeting on their special day. Thank you. And now, please welcome Rotarian Curtis Shirey to make an announcement for U40. Curtis?
Hello, everyone. I've been up here the past couple weeks talking about the U40 program. Scheduled to kick off this July. As I've said in the past, the U40 program is designed to bring new members into the club here who are under 40, are rising leaders in their field, and are philanthropically minded as well. All important aspects of being a good Rotarian. As of now, the deadline for applications is next Wednesday. I believe that's the 9th. And we're still about 5 applications short of filling our class. So any help with that would be appreciated. If you know anybody that fits that description of what I just mentioned, I'd appreciate if you directed them my way or directed them to the U40 application website, which is right on the main Rotary page under U40. So please reach out if you have any questions, but hope for your help here. Thank you.
Thanks, Curtis. A great reminder and a wonderful program. Now, as usual, we're going to disappear and enter a virtual table talk. Please introduce yourselves to the others in your group, and a minute or so before you come back to this main meeting, you'll get a visual heads up. You always seem to have plenty to talk about, but thinking about today's presentation, here's an idea for an icebreaker. Did you travel anywhere this Memorial Day weekend? And if so, what was your experience? Here we go. But I hope you enjoyed your conversations. And now on to our program. After our speaker today is finished, if you'd like to ask Tim a question, Carol will moderate the Q&A through the chat box. And now, please welcome past President Rotarian Chris Achterman as today's Chair of the Day. Tim? I'm sorry, Chris?
Okay, unmute myself again. Am I unmuted?
You're good.
Okay. It's my pleasure to introduce Tim Morgan. I had the pleasure some time ago to travel with another representative of AAA, and our conversations led to my thought that it would be very interesting to hear from AAA, especially in light of the experiences we've had the last year. Tim has served for several years as the Chief Executive Officer of AAA. He's a native Portlander and graduate of the University of Portland. In addition to his activities with AAA, he's served on the boards of many organizations in our community. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Tim Morgan, who's going to talk about AAA and how it's evolving in the face of our current environment.
Well, thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. And thank you to everyone for allowing me to have some time with you today. It's an honor to be with you. And hopefully if I do okay today, maybe you'll have me back sometime in the future when you're actually having lunch. I could actually have lunch with all of you and meet you in person. Now, I noticed through the scan, just to identify, I am wearing a sport jacket. This is something that people wore prior to the pandemic, and I've got one on today. So thank you again for the type A, any type A personalities in the audience today. Those of you that are type A, I've got 48 slides and I'm gonna go through relatively quickly before we conclude our time together. So just in case you wanna know how this is ending, you're gonna end with hopefully a nice round of applause. So I will begin screen sharing with you here. And let me get this going. Okay, so I think we're good to go. Maybe Ruth, you can give me a thumbs up if everything looks all right. Perfect. So I thought this morning or this afternoon, what I'd talk to you about is I'd give you an update on AAA. What are we about? How did we evolve through the pandemic? What's happening with the travel industry? And then maybe a couple of other comments that are points of interest that I get questions about from time to time, to thought process around autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, the power grid, and then I wanted to end with a little bit around advocacy. So if that's okay, that's what I'd like to cover with you here in the next 20 minutes or so. So an update on our organization, as many of you know or not, and by the way, those of you that are AAA members out there, thank you for being members. Thank you for staying with us this past year. Well, I like to say when I meet fellow AAA members, I work for you. Our organization is really driven around mission to deliver the best service possible. Our club, as many clubs around the country, and by the way, all AAA clubs are independent corporations. We're much like the Blue Cross Blue Shield system, where the only thing we don't own is the brand, and the brand is licensed to us. Our club was formed as the Portland Automobile Club in 1905, when 44 of the 219 registered car owners in the area came together to form the club. And one of the things that I like about the origin, when you think about something being around since 1905, is you think about the DNA of that organization. How did it come together? And when this started, road service wasn't really a thing yet. We didn't really have tow trucks till much later. But by joining the club, you basically said, I'm committing to helping others at the roadside. So in essence, we were the beginning of a sharing community way back in 1905. We have primary components to our business. So first and foremost, the number one reason people join and renew at AAA is road service. We're delighted that we have some of the highest rated road service, not only in the country, but our club in particular prides itself as one of the top performing road service road service performers in the country. We have insurance, personal line insurance business. We have financial services. We have a travel store, and we have a travel business, which I will share with you some of the impact that the pandemic has had on us here in a couple of slides. I did want to mention that on the road service, one of the things that really is a differentiator for us versus other products is we're about your personal mobility. So it's not about you and that typical vehicle. We cover you whether you're in your car, in a passenger in a friend's car, the membership goes with you. And in approximately 2010, we actually started extending road service benefits to bicycles as well. So your road service benefits match in a car or bicycle, whatever level of membership that you have. Now, the one thing on bicycle though is we don't cover fatigue. So if you're too tired to get to the top of the hill, that's on you. So I want to talk a little bit about 2020. So I know maybe some of these are not right for the Rock'em Sock'em Robot games of yesterday, but when we think about the year 2020, we took a lot of body blows. Now, by the way, in Rock'em Sock'em Robots, the idea is that you have body blows to your opponent, but you don't get your block knocked off. Well, we deemed 2020 the Rock'em Sock'em Robot year because we were able to persevere through a lot of different challenges, whether that was the pandemic, the civil unrest, wildfires, the election anxiety. It was a lot to get through, but we persevered through and still maintained a very, very high level of service. One of the things that helped galvanize us early on in the pandemic is that we came up with 5 guiding principles that we would use to stress test any of the decisions that we were going to make as we went through the pandemic. And if you remember last year about this time, you were probably thinking if you ever got to go back into Starbucks again, the form of currency was going to be some sort of paper product. Like it was going to be 3 rolls of toilet paper and maybe a roll of paper towels. That was going to be the new currency. Like there was some crazy thinking going on. What helped stabilize our 500 employees and 75 leaders was having these guiding principles about how we're going to prioritize what we do. And the primary objective of this was to commitment to the safety and well-being of our employees and our members. We also wanted to make sure that we committed to continue to provide service. So we deployed our travel and insurance agents to remote locations, working from home, something we'd never done before. There was a lot of questions going on in the travel industry and cancellations. And so we wanted to be a trusted source of information. And we wanted to be calm and think clearly. And finally, as you know, during the pandemic, you were a lot smarter on Monday than you were the previous Friday. So we wanted to have the humility to be able to pivot and be flexible as the situation develops. All of these things help galvanize us as we went through this little story right here. So I don't have the dollar amounts on here, but let's just say our business topped out around $65 million in 2019. And then you can see the impact on our travel business last year. Now, you might think that we weren't very busy last year. It was one of our busiest travel years ever in form of activity, as it truly was Groundhog Day for our almost 70 travel agents as what was happening. We were booking people, working through cancellations, trying to get refunds for them, future travel credits. Then we would book out 6 months because, right, automagical thinking that the pandemic was going to be over by September and we'll be back on that cruise or tour. And so this has happened multiple times. To the credit of our travel agents, I think they were able to reaffirm the value of a travel agent in the mind of our member. And we were able on almost every single occasion to either have our members receive a future travel credit or to have a refund. We also had to make a decision on where this was going. What would a recovery look like? What was going to make travel possible again? What sort of headwinds would the travel industry see in being able to bring airplanes back online? How to bring crews back to cruise ships? What are the lead times of those? What's going to be the acceptance of our members to be willing to travel again? What sort of barriers might they see in trying to get into Europe? And so based on some past experiences of whether we went through 9/11 and the recovery of the travel industry through that period of time, or through the recession of 08/09 and how the travel industry recovered from that, we knew it was going to be a fairly lengthy process to get us back to where we had been in 2019. And so far, our projections are holding true. We think we will return to kind of full capacity sometime in 2025. In the meantime, we've maintained our travel agent force. We're ready to go when you're ready to go. We did a slight adjustment with an early retirement program in November last year to help us equalize our capacity a little bit. And we were delighted that the exact number of travel agents that we hoped would take the early retirement program did. So we've been able to avoid layoffs, cutbacks, furloughs. None of those things happened as we went through the pandemic, and we feel very good about where we are as we emerge and are ready to quickly adapt and be there for our members' travels needs. If any point in time that this has really shown the value of a travel agent, I think this past year did. So we'll see how that bodes for us as we move forward. So from a pandemic standpoint, we quickly adapted to a remote workforce. We prioritized safety. We had very, very little contagion within our employee base. We had 0 employee-to-employee transfers of COVID. And now we're working on our return to office strategy. And what we've done is we've told our employees that sometime between July 1 and October 30th, they would be returning to their workplace for the most part. In some areas like our call center, we're going to probably have a little bit stronger remote workforce than we did before. But we've told them they would return in that period of time. The majority of our employees are coming back in September and October, and we've told them that they would receive at least 30 days notice of what the return to office date would be. In addition to that, we're offering time off and incentive for going through the vaccination process. I was talking to a couple of folks prior to this, to Dev and Jack, and we were talking about the inactivity of driving during this period of time. And that led actually to record battery sales for us in 2020 as the limited driving activity actually accelerated the the replacement cycle of batteries. And then finally, just a little bit of plug for our travel business. We are ready when you're ready. And we know that no marketing campaign is going to change your mind of when you feel that you're ready to travel again. But we are seeing signs, and a little bit of a pun intended here, that we may be entering another roaring 20s as people emerge from the pandemic and are ready to get out and travel again. Unfortunately, it's going to be expensive as there's going to be limited capacity as the cruise lines try to recall crews. You all are aware of some of the challenges around the labor shortage. Airline pilots, I was with the Alaska airline pilot last weekend. He was mentioning that they have 20% of their capacity still offline. There's an airline pilot shortage going on. So even while we're trying to recover, we're going to see some capacity constraints that are going to drive prices. Rental cars in particular, as they sold off their fleets and now are trying to rebuild their fleets. And what's happening in the auto industry? Chip shortage. So be ready to travel, but just know there's not going to be a lot of deals out there. So just a little bit about what we were about in 2020. And then I was getting a kick out of this. I don't really remember this, but early on pre-pandemic, remember there was huge outcry over what? This is the giant Asian hornet. Remember that came into northern Washington and was going to be a huge deal. Well, unfortunately, the pandemic and the things that we encountered kind of wiped out the interest in the giant Asian hornet. So I want to talk a little bit about autonomous vehicles and the road to autonomy. And we think this is something that's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, but it's just really a matter of when. And why is there so much interest in autonomous cars? And what are some of the hurdles that are facing us as we try to get into a situation where we can just call a car from our device, enter an address, sit down in that vehicle, and off we go. Well, the goal here is to try to reduce or eliminate the more than 6 million auto crashes that occurred in just 2019, causing the loss of 36,000 lives and costs exceeding $836 billion. This is the problem that's trying to be solved. If you hear anything in auto safety right now, there's no more accidents, right? The term accident is gone. It's crashes or collisions. It's all due to driver error. This is what's trying to be eliminated. Now, there's been some gross overstatements about how quickly we were going to get to autonomous vehicles. This is a quote that I used back in 2013. So that's, I think my math's right. We're almost at 8 years back when Nissan pledged that they'd have self-driving cars by 2020. That hasn't happened. This has turned into a much more complex issue than anyone had really anticipated. We're making progress on this, but we're still a long way off on fully autonomous vehicles. There's been other kind of crazy statements. All of these are from 7 years ago. So Ford had announced that they'd have self-driving cars around 2020. Uber was very optimistic as they thought they'd be testing flying cars by this point in time. And Apple was going to greenlight their own self-driving car. So all this stuff has stalled out. But why the need? Why so many concerns around crashes? Well, it's because we're very, very distracted as drivers. AAA does quite a bit of research. The National Foundation for Traffic Safety is engaged in a number of different studies. And as the number of things that have come into the cockpit of your automobile, we've become more and more distracted. That distraction, speed and distance, causes crashes and collisions. And something that has occurred that was not predicted, but due to the fact that we've been distracted, has been the increase in fatalities. And you can see that these started to go up in 2014. We were in a period of time as we got to automated braking, safety measures, we saw a decrease in fatalities, but as distracted driving occurred, we started to see that increase. So there's 5 levels of autonomous vehicles from 0. This is from the Society of Automotive Engineers. These are the 5 levels of where we're trying to go. So level 0 is no automation whatsoever. And level 5 is where you just get into a device that doesn't even have a steering wheel and it just takes you off to your destination. This is the road to autonomous vehicles. And I'll just go through these really quickly just to give you a sense of where this is happening. So this is your 1960-ish Volkswagen Bug. That's where you rolled down the window. You didn't even have that sort of automation in your car. That's no automation. 0, the driver performs all tasks. Level 1 is when there's some sort of driver assistance, and that would be around something like this, which would be cruise control. This is one of the first vehicles in the country that had cruise control. It's a 1958 Imperial, which became Chrysler, which was one of the first models with cruise control. Level 2 is when cars have some sort of automated function like acceleration and steering, but the driver must maintain an engagement into the vehicle. Now, Tesla Autopilot kind of bridges the gap between level 2 and level 3 and some components of what it does. But now we're getting into this point where speed and direction is being handled by the car. Level 3 is conditional automation, where the vehicle has automated functions like steering and acceleration, and the driver does not need to monitor that activity for a period of time. The driver can hand over some of the functionality to the vehicle. This is what the circle of semi-autonomy looks like, that I drive the vehicle, I hand off to the car, the car drives, and then the car alerts me that I need to come back into engagement and drive the vehicle. And this is where the primary problems occur, is in the hand and back. Let's see. My screen just changed. Is my presentation still up? No? All right, am I back?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, not sure what happened there. Glitchy, it's glitchy. All right, and then level 4 is when, is like in the Waymo project, where the car can do most of the activity except when there's certain conditions. Weather's poor, there's heavy traffic, some sort of road type that doesn't have appropriate striping. But for the most part, the car can perform autonomously for you. And then level 5 is these little gizmos, like you get in and it takes you where you want to go, and it's fully autonomous. So that's what is trying to be achieved. Consumer acceptance around this is really low. This number hasn't changed in 3 years. It's still only about 14% of Americans would trust riding in a self-driving vehicle. And this is where the problem is occurring here in this transition to full autonomy, that as we get closer and closer to full autonomy, the probability of accidents are occurring. And so one thing to give some consideration to, and I'm assuming many of you are thought leaders in this area and involved in civic activities, there's some discussion going on within the OEMs, is like, maybe we should just skip all this stuff around level 3 and level 4. Maybe that is just too dangerous. Maybe this isn't something that we want to be a part of. So keep an eye on this as we move forward. The other issue is that not all of these technologies are called the same things. AAA is trying to help with that, trying to get the OEMs to at least agree that certain set of functions are all named the same thing. I mean, imagine if anti-lock brakes are named something differently in every car, or if cruise control was named something different in every car and the engagement of that was completely different. That's some of the work that's still undergoing within autonomous vehicles. So challenges ahead: technology, insurance coverage, privacy, cybersecurity, and consumer acceptance. And like I started on this, it's not if, but when. I do believe, this is my only personal feeling here, is that few individuals will own them. It will be part of your mobility choices, and there will be bumps along the way. And this is my son, Zach, when he was 16 and learning to drive. Maybe my grandchildren won't be doing this. Not sure. Time will tell. So let's shift into electric vehicles. And I wanted to kind of give you a little bit about how AAA's thoughts are on electric vehicles and what we're doing and how we're adapting to that. So first, let's kind of set the stage on electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are part of the overall vehicle miles traveled in the United States. Now, this is vehicles miles traveled across the US. These are in billions of miles here. As you can see, a lot of people didn't do a lot of driving in 2020. We all had, the COVID miracle of no traffic for a period of time. But electric vehicles are part of the structure. We still need streets, we still need roads, we still need to work through road improvement. None of those things go away just because we're using electric vehicles. Two real kind of drivers around electric vehicles: you have your battery electric vehicle, and then you have your plug-in electric hybrid. This is the cumulative sales between 2010 and 2020. I think that's 1.6 million vehicles out of a total number of vehicles in the US of about 276 million. So that's less than 0.5%. So still a pretty small percentage of the overall US passenger vehicle fleet. Where are they in Oregon? Not surprisingly, they're mainly located in the Portland metropolitan area. Not a lot of electric vehicles out in Eastern Oregon. And where do we rank? Where does Portland rank along the other major markets? We're fourth, fifth in the marketplace on share of new electric vehicles. So this has driven some of our customer service, member service strategy around how we want to service members that have electric vehicles. And there's some fantastic products out there. Dev was mentioning that he had a Tesla and what great results he's had with that. We've had a Bolt as part of our car fleet here at AAA over the last 3 years, and we just moved into the all-electric Mustang Mach-E. And my initial interaction with that vehicle was, good for you, Ford Motor Company. You got this right. So there's new choices available to consumers. And then in the plug-in electric vehicles, there's also some great choices going on. And this is the theory that I've got a certain distance of miles that are covered by my electric battery, and then it'll switch over to gasoline engine. So this is a Toyota RAV4 that's got about 50 miles of electric, and even a Jeep Wrangler E now that has about 20 miles of electric capacity before it switches over into gas. So some great consumer choices. This is only going to get better and better, and you keep hearing manufacturers talk about their commitment to moving to either electric hybrid or battery electric vehicles. You know, this is something that where some of the controversy comes in about what's the clean efficiency of electric vehicles versus high efficiency gas engines. And I'll let you all make your own decisions on this, but certainly out here in the Northwest, it's I think a bit indisputable that this is a very clean transfer of energy to electricity to the vehicle. This is a very efficient manner to have an electric fleet possibility out there. Now, this is where charging stations are across the country, and you can see, and this kind of matches a little bit some of the challenges around the electrification grid of the United States. There's some real holes out here. So we've got some work to do to finally get to a point into the future and investment in order to have the ability to deliver on the promise of an electric vehicle fleet. We were really surprised. I'm going to show you a slide here in a moment. We're announcing in the next few weeks that we're putting charging stations in at most of our club-owned facilities along the I-5 corridor and in Boise. We had hoped that we would be able to put in level 3 charging units. These are the different levels of charging and how you'd be able to charge an electric vehicle. The grid is not available to us in almost every single location for level 3, and we had to revert to level 2 scenario. So we saw this firsthand as we were building our partnership with ChargePoint to bring this member benefit to bear for our Oregon and Idaho members along the I-5 corridor and in Boise. And this is kind of where we're planning I-5 and out in Boise, Napa. So I'll conclude here real quickly. I know I'm running maybe a minute or two over, but AAA charging stations are coming. Some great choices out there for battery electric vehicles and plug-ins. Electrification infrastructure issues are out there. We still need, remember, to invest in that road capacity. And we've been doing mobile charging since 2009. So we've, in the Portland metro area, we've been able to, you run out of juice in your electric vehicle, we'll come and give you a jump, much like we would if you were out of gas in your normal vehicle. I'm going to finish quickly with advocacy. One of the other big components of what AAA does on a national level and a state level is research and advocacy for transportation and transportation safety. It's really around education, research, vehicle testing, and then advocacy within the legislature. So one of the things we just finished up on was a research project on distracted driving and how does Apple CarPlay and Android Auto work in relationship to built-in infotainment systems in vehicles. And we found that they were much safer than the manufacturer OEM installations. So if you're using Apple or Android as in your vehicles, it's much less distracting than the actual built-in systems. And that difference can be almost 15 seconds, which is a considerable amount of time when you're traveling at 60 miles per hour. not only in a federal level, but on a state level, we're involved in a lot of different state committees, primarily around transportation safety, funding, and advocacy. And these are just a few of the things that, that we're involved in from a state legislative standpoint. So I'll finish. This is got through 48 slides. This is our values of our organization. We went through this about 3 years ago to revive these. We originally were going to have them as part of our internal culture, but we quickly shifted and have made those available to our members as well as part of our brand promise. So touched on a lot of things there. Hopefully, as smattering, it was of interest to a couple of you, and thank you again for the opportunity to have some time with you this afternoon.
Thank you, Tim. We do have a few minutes for questions, some of which are already in the queue. If you have a question, please type it in the chat box and Carol will call on you. Carol, who's first?
Thank you. First of all, we have Wes Harper. Wesley, you want to ask your question of Tim?
Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Tim, for your presentation. Learned a lot. I would like to ask you about the demographics of your club members, age, range. Has that changed? And then just a very quick question. Do you have a map, an app for mobile phones?
So yes, on the mobile app, you can download your AAA mobile app from Apple or Android store, and there is a map interface for that for destinations, and it ties into the AAA content for tour book information and hotels and restaurants. So that is available to you on the mobile app. So thank you for doing that. I should mention we're investing heavily continued in our website, our mobile app, our technology on being able to reach people quickly at the roadside. And we're putting in a brand new travel platform for our travel agents to use, which will increase the efficiency of building itineraries for our members and actually a web interface so the member can work in conjunction with our travel agent. So the demographic for our club has not moved much. I've been here 19 years. We're a little bit younger than when I started. We're about in the 54 range, 53 range, average age. When we look at our acquisition of 30 and 40-year-olds, we seem to be trending better than some areas of the country. And again, the digital platform is very important to that member and acquiring that member. But what's interesting in this is what we spend a lot of time and energy on is making sure that younger demographic knows us and knows how to reach us, that when they're ready for our services, they come and find us. If we try to convert them too early when they're not really ready for what we offer, we just see churn. We have 850,000 members in our club, and we had about a 90.6 retention rate last year, which is one of the highest in the country. So we try to focus in on making sure people are aware of us and what we do and how to find us when you're ready. So thanks for that question.
Thank you.
And did you get your question answered or do you have more to ask?
Oh, no,
I do have more to ask.
No.
You know, right now what we are seeing is Tesla is leading the way of putting charging stations. And it seems like most manufacturers are looking for their own plug-in generators. For those companies to be competitive, they need to have a charging station. And I'm not sure if they're spending any money in that market.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I don't know that, to me, it doesn't seem, this is just my personal opinion. I'm not talking to this AAA CEO right now. To me, it just seems like we should be investing in some sort of universal charging platform that's not specific by manufacturer. I don't know that that's necessarily the secret sauce in the vehicle, but maybe it is for something on the high end. But how do we have a universal platform so we're not getting into a Betamax and VHS issue, right, of compatibility, but how do we make these platforms available to the majority of users? So great call out, and AAA doesn't have a position on that. That's just my own opinion.
Thank you. Chris, you had a question?
My question sort of spins off of Wes's in the sense that with the change in driving patterns and car ownership patterns in younger demographics, what do you see as the future? I mean, you talked about it a little bit in the sense that your age distribution is staying about the same, but as the way that we use cars changes, how do you see that changing?
Yeah, and I think the number one reason why people join and renew AAA is certainly road service, a peace of mind of having that, whether it's on your bicycle or in your car or passenger car. It's all the other things that we bring, with travel discounts, or discounts and rewards programs, tour book content. So we're trying to make sure that we're relevant to people in a lot of different areas and a lot of different challenges. Now, what's interesting is when I came to AAA in 2002, it was projected by like 2010 that road service might be the number 3 or number 4 reason why people join. It's still predominantly that way. So we want to make sure that we're staying relevant. It's great to have a brand from 1905, right, that we've been able to survive for and thrive for that many years, but how do we continue to evolve into the future? And we have some ideas around that. We're trying to work through a process of how do we bring the AAA brand into your home. So home maintenance programs is one of those things that we're testing. Home security, car share has been a big opportunity for Northern California and now into the Seattle marketplace. We were really close to bringing car share to Portland pre-pandemic. That stalled out a little bit based on everything that's happened, but we hopefully that we could be a part of bringing a car share program to Portland, which is very relevant and pertinent to that younger demographic. So Chris, you're asking the $1 million question. What we talk about is being a coachable, adaptable organization that can implement change very quickly. And that as ideas present themselves and new services become available that our members are requesting, that we can execute that into the system. So we're test driving through R&D a number of projects across the country, and we'll see which one of those we are able to bring to life. So thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know, Tim, if you can bring up your map about the electric charging stations, but Dick Thomas has a question about that.
Tim, thanks for your presentation. I thought it was just really right on the ball. Your map, however, that showed the charging stations showed a pretty wide vacancy in the state of Nevada. And I drive through there, and I can tell you that there are plenty of charging stations if you're driving an electric car that starts with a T. And that's true whether you're going east and west or north and south. And it seems to me that even if you're driving a Tesla and you need to stop in an electric or go electric spot, there are adapters that you can use to charge. So it seems like that problem may be one that will just go away by itself.
Yeah, I think as opposed to using the map to try to look at accessibility, I think I was trying to use it to maybe as a little bit of a foreshadowing of where the grid issues might occur, and where we have some work to do as a country to build the infrastructure to truly have coast to coast capacity. If in fact we're trying to say in 25 years that we're going to have 300 million plug-in electric vehicles or battery electric vehicles, there's this work to do. And just to be cognizant that when we're talking about investment, if that's really the goal that we want to get to, we're going to need to make some investment in the electrical grid.
Totally agree. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Dick.
Thank you. We only have time for one more question. Does anybody else have one? If not, I'm going to hand it back to our leader.
Well, thank you, Carol. I actually do have a question, Tim. I have my AAA card here, a member since 1985, 36 years. But one transition that you didn't talk about is that a lot of people are now booking their own travel online. And I was wondering how AAA has adapted to this change where travel agents still play a role, but maybe they play a little bit different role.
Yeah, great question. And again, probably 20 years ago, everybody was projecting the death of the travel agent. And what has happened is that there's been choice overload. So the complexity of what happens when you're trying to plan these trips and the choices available to people just get into analysis paralysis. So what we've seen is simple travel transactions have really gone digital on AAA.com. So we've seen a big growth in our AAA.com business, and this would be hotels, airlines, rental cars, lots of domestic travel. But for the complex trips around cruises, international tours, people really want somebody, and that's why we have so many destination specialists, is so that you can come in and talk to a travel agent about, hey, I want to go to Northern Italy. This is what I'm thinking about. Yeah, we've got somebody for you. They've been there, they've seen that. Here are the choices, let's just say on a 7-day cruise, and dinner reservations and restaurants. They just have that ability to kind of help narrow the field and deliver the experience that you're looking for, because there is choice overload. In fact, my wife used to like to book of all our travel herself. And then about 10 years ago, I finally talked her into having a travel agent. She's like, this is a lot better. Like, yes, they're helping you narrow the funnel and get those choices to the point so we can deliver that exceptional travel experience that you're looking for. So yeah, thanks.
That's great. And I've had that experience at AAA. Thank you all for your thoughtful questions. Next week, we'll hear from Craig Gabriel, Assistant U.S. Attorney in Portland, on the federal criminal justice system in Oregon. Once again, this meeting will be live via Zoom at noon on Tuesday. If you have a speaker idea, please submit them on our website, and Siobhan will put the link in the chat. Now, I want to say thank you to everyone who helped in today's meeting. Carol, thanks for your reflection and for handling the Q&A. Curtis, we appreciate your invitation to make recommendations for U40. Chris, thanks for your speaker introduction. And Tim, thank you again for your informative presentation. I think back to the AAAs that Carol introduced. I see your organization as having accepted the changes that are coming in the travel industry, that you aspire to be helpful in those changes and serve your customers and your employees. And then finally, you and AAA remain accountable to those results. Now, as we enter into New Rotary Week, please join me in opening the doors of opportunity for healing, recovery, and peace building. As Rotarians, we're here to make our world healthier, more sustainable, and with justice for all. So good to see all of you. This meeting is adjourned.